Hello, and welcome to Wise Up with Open Water, your regular dose of wisdom from the open water community. I'm your host, Ken Pasternak. I'm an Open Water founding member as well as a contributor, and I'm happy to welcome Denis Champagne to today's episode, during which we'll be talking about the relationship between personal capacity, physical discipline, and long-term business performance. Denis is a revenue and strength advisor to established business owners and sales leaders who refuse decline. With more than 35 years of experience in telemarketing, business development, and enterprise consulting across industries, including consumer packaged goods, financial automation, and energy efficiency, Denis has built revenue engines across North America, Asia Pacific, and Latin America. He's a lifelong entrepreneur and a former competitive athlete. And Denis now integrates sales execution, physical strength, discipline, and mental resilience into a single operating framework. He's the creator of the TEAMS method, that's TEAMS with two M's, as well as Wealth Span Strength, a performance model designed to help leaders build physical capacity, mental clarity, and sustainable energy for the long term. And I'm looking forward to talking to him about all of those things. So Denis, welcome, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Ken. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. I think the community is really going to enjoy this conversation. And I'd love to start it off with this phrase that I started in my bio that said, refuse decline. It's a really strong and provocative idea, especially for folks mid-career, midlife. What does that mean to you personally? And why do you think that so many leaders maybe accept decline without even realizing?
Well, it's a great question. And, refuse this decline is really not a slogan per se. It's really a function of one of the most difficult things that people end up not accomplishing. And I'm still sometimes subject to that, is making a decision.
Uh-huh.
It's a D with a capital D, a decision with a capital D. And when I was younger, the first things I used to do before running a marathon or trying all these crazy sporty things, I read Napoleon Hill, who wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if you ever.
Okay.
And one of the principles in his book, 13 Principles that he applied, that he studied in super successful people, is successful people in his estimation, from what he's observed, are people who were quick in making a decision and slow in changing it.
Uh-huh.
Versus people who did not succeed were very quick in changing their decision and fast in changing them.
Uh-huh.
So I really encourage, and that gap between the promise you make and the promise you keep, that's where the decline takes root. So I didn't want that. And, I've spent 35 years self-employed, well, 36 this year. And I've watched leaders build amazing engines and amazing things, but it erodes, their energy erodes because their physical capacity does so. If they want to, but they realize that they are subject to entropy or the process of losing energy because they're losing muscle, they're losing physical capability. And that's not because they're better or worse than others. It's just the natural, I like to think of it as compression of morbidity. You want to stay strong as long as you can and then die, not gradually suffer and suffer. With that comes your mind suffers as well.
Yeah.
So so many people accept that quietly. And it's
maybe even unconsciously?
Very unconsciously, actually. They still think they're busy, but it's called busyness. It's not business. It's not qualities. They're, and it's gradual, so it creeps up on you. You don't realize it. And then all of a sudden you go, holy moly, I'm tired. I'm irritable. I have issues. I end up with a stroke. I'm not eating the way I should be eating. And as you get older and as you age, you got to focus on your health because your health is your greatest wealth. And that's where my word wealth span comes from. It's one thing to have a health span. It's another thing to have wealth span. You'll be happy in your decline.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that. I was intrigued by that word wealth span and the word strength together with it, wealth span strength. So you say it connects physical strength, mental resilience, internal alignment, and business performance. I'd love to hear about how those domains overlap and influence each other.
Well, they influence each other because it has kind of a what they call a domino effect. It seeps into you once you start focusing on one of those qualities. So at the beginning, it may be mental capacity, maybe it's something like physical sport, but they're not separate. They run in parallel. They are one system that, the body, the human being is a system. I don't know if you ever heard of the Gestalt theories.
Yes.
The whole is better than the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
here it is in function.
Yeah.
And for me, from my experience, the physical component, the physical strength is the hallmark of the foundation. It's where all things become not aesthetically important, but fundamentally operational. It's called capacity. What does capacity means for people? So it's your ability to carry load, to recover from things that happen to you. Some people are still kind of, I remember when I went bankrupt 25 years ago, it took me a while to kind of recover from that, you in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I chose to become anemic to that. You made a conscious decision to forget about it,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and create a new identity to myself. And that's where I, started back competing in the sport again, the cycling,
Uh-huh.
from professional squash to competitive cycling. And I said, if they can do it, I can do it. So I had that from early on. When I was 7 years old, I was in a summer camp, and everything was easy for me in that summer camp. So I ended up at 7 years old becoming the second best athlete of that camp.
Hmm.
And there were
All of a
13 year
sudden.
olds.
Yeah.
Because it was natural for me. So I was lucky that way. Not everybody is, but they're lucky in some other areas.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to encourage people to look to themselves as the source. They are the source. They are the cause. They are the foundation. And we forget that when we are in the hustle bustle of everyday life. So WellSpan really has become a richer life, a, a, a an encompassing existence, because we're caught up in little nuggets of time. We don't appreciate that we're not here forever.
Mm.
So there's a philosophical Buddhist principle, as I told you, combined with my competitive athlete. I wanted to marry these three pillars, the Buddha, if you want to call it, the body and the business, like when you're successful and happy with yourself, there's a good chance you're going to carry that over into the way you treat your clients, the way you treat your partners, the way you treat your wife.
Mm-hmm.
It's not detached. You can't be
Mm-hmm.
one kind of business person and be another kind of person.
Right. Yeah. Or you're going to hit a wall at some point if you are, maybe.
And you will. And I hope you do. That's what I say. I hope
Well,
you do.
yeah, because then otherwise it's that unconscious decline we talked about earlier, right?
And
Um,
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm fascinated by two things. One is this concept of recovery because it reminded me. When I was in high school, I ran cross country, and my coach said something like, when you get into shape, when you're actually in good shape, the races don't necessarily get easier. In fact, they might get harder because you're running them faster, but the recovery gets so much easier. The recovery is faster. You're back on your feet. You're back to peak form much, much faster. And I've never forgotten that. And as I get older, and I just ran Beta Breakers last weekend, which in San Francisco, it's a 12K across the city. And I'll tell you what, it took me a while to recover from that because I was not in proper shape. And so it was very, very apparent to me that, I was ready for it mentally, but I was not ready for it physically. And that was a big, big thing. So I really appreciate you talking about recovery and how that can have multiple dimensions to it. But the other thing, the third dimension that you just talked about, the spiritual dimension, the mention of the Buddha, I know that you've drawn some of these principles from, I think it's Nichiren Buddhism. Is that correct?
exactly. Yes.
So tell me about how that has approached your perspective and how you think about leadership and performance.
Well, we have to look at why and what kind of leader do you want to be? Do
Mm-hmm.
you want to be a leader? Do you
Mm-hmm.
consider yourself to be a leader? What does leadership means? Because there's a lot of definitions out there. There's a semantic universe of ways of expressing it. I think that, everybody has to come to terms with what does that mean for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there to tell them. I'm going to show them what I've done with my
Mm-hmm.
life. Uh, so I follow my heart, and I did not, I didn't finish my university, um, because my heart says I got a job as a squash professional for the summer, and they want me to stay in September, and I had to decide, and I
Yeah.
said I don't want regrets. I won't
Mm-hmm.
regret, doing 3 universities and not finishing. I've learned things. I don't have a paper, but I've been self-employed for 36 years, and I lived amazing life in my youth and in my later years. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to go from this world saying, "Wow, what an amazing life I had."
Mm-hmm.
I chose number one, my priorities. I don't want regrets. I think regret is probably the greatest suffering that we all have. So I don't want any regrets. And
Mm-hmm.
so instead of trying to please and correspond to what others are likely to expect from you, I want to go and respect me.
Mm-hmm.
So Buddhism is about transforming your own inner life. It's not about seeking enlightenment or salvation or whatever you want to call it outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I came into connecting with Buddhism. I had gone through a tremendous amount of stuff. My mother had passed away. My
Mm-hmm.
partners kicked me out of the business. And I had a new relationship after the divorce that was like the rebound. The rebound is always a bad idea. And
Uh-huh.
I got into some legal stuff, there was violence, I was
Mm.
sad, bad. So I had to kind of transform that out of, all that gut, that
Yeah.
duck that's got sticky on you,
Yes. Yes.
clean yourself. And I'm so appreciative of those now, um, in retrospect. So, I got my stories. We all have our stories.
Yes.
And so, and it's only recently that I've hit the age that I've hit, and that I say, I want to be able to help others that are probably somewhere along their path into similar situations. And I can share with them, and certainly physical strength. When you start going to the gym, and I'm saying, strength is about the barbell, it's not about machines. That's how I operate.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to do the major compound movements. When you start squatting a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, it doesn't take long, 3 months, and you're squatting 50, 60 pounds more than you've ever dreamt you could. Your body changes. And there's so much studies now that show that the relationship between your body and your cognitive capabilities, now the research is there. I know
Mm-hmm.
you started with Buddhism, right? You
Uh-huh.
asked me much about Buddhism, but it's honoring myself. So it's the inner way, and that's where I started saying, okay, I deserve this,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're suffering, you're kind of in your own little world, and you don't want to talk to anybody, and you don't want to ask for help. I'm there to you say, hey, I've been through a lot of guck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful for where I am now. And if I can help someone else transform their physical capabilities, which carries over into their mental capabilities, and maybe they will want to have a better state of inner life condition, a spiritual component to their lives. It's not for everyone, just
Mm-hmm.
like my methodology and my program is not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But those there, I am with them. And it's an amazing feeling when you see some people transform themselves.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I've had moments of that myself, and it certainly does feel pretty great. And the clarity is just incredible.
Yes.
And actually, I'd love to hear. I'd love to build on that for a minute because in today's society, there's this tendency to power through. Right? You're in tough times. You're like, I'm gonna power through. I'm gonna get through it. I'm a tough week. I'm in a week like that right now myself. I've just been powering through. And I know it's not good. I'm not sleeping well, all the things that you've been talking about. And you've said that, what you do and the work that you do with the folks that you work with is structural. It's not motivational. And you say that motivation tends to fail people over the long term. I'd love to hear, what that structure versus motivation means and how your team's method helps create consistency and accountability by maybe not focusing on motivation, focusing on something else.
Well, motivation is temporary. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's not something that lasts all day, all week, all
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
It comes and goes. Structure doesn't care about that. Structure is there to provide you with the framework, and you can sit in that seat and drive, or you can say, I'm going to take a pass today.
Mm.
And motif, right? It's comes from a movement.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation is a motif in
Mm-hmm.
French, right? Motive. So it moves you, but once the machine is moving, what keeps it moving? It's not going to be um, um, motivation. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline comes from the word disciple.
Mm.
A lot of people don't know about that. So are you the disciple to a school of thought, to a vision of life? So if you haven't thought through, you just use these words, kind of sparingly and not understand the meaning of them. So motivation and my team's program, it's about targeting and about execution, TE. Those are the two most important
Mm.
words in the motivation in the program. So make sure you're clear on your targets. Make sure you know exactly what you're really willing to stand for. And that takes time. You may
Yeah.
have been under the spell of doing something for 20 years, kind of loosely, without really thinking through things. You're busy in the motion, right? So um, the concept of motivation, and that's why I provide a structure. It's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Those who take it, they can use it. That's like anything else. So um, structure allows you to, I guess, when failing to look for some kind of inspiration, you look to the structure. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is what it says. This is what I need to do. And you just do it. And sometimes you have to do it without emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if I think that I know the story of, Nike coming up with
Mm-hmm.
just do it. You remember that they have that as the slogan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That slogan comes from a number of years of promoting the runners. I remember I ran my first marathon in 1977.
Wow.
And in those days, we had the Nike waffle trainer, the shoe.
Mm-hmm.
It was waffle soles.
Right.
That was their calling card. And then they had the Nike LDV, which is a wider sole at the back
Mm-hmm.
for more stability. It was orange and yellow, all
Okay.
mesh, nylon mesh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when they started that, they really were working at inspiring people. And they did some commercials, if I'm not mistaken. I may be completely off here, but correct me if you can, or someone will. I hope they will in the
Mm-hmm.
comments. That they had lampposts throughout a course, and people were running at night during a training. And the people were standing in there saying, we're with you. We're with you. Keep going. We're with you. We're keep going. So, and I said, just do it. And just do it really is the most wonderful kind of statement because it really is about just act.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's no explanation, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And action overcomes everything, or action overcomes most things. So in my kind of wealth span strength model, I encourage people, well, you're not sure, just go to the gym, just start lifting. Even if what? Go to the gym, walk in and walk out. You've been to
Mm.
the gym. If that's where you're at, Well, I'll work with you.
Yeah. The beginning of structure. You got structure begins with the first piece of whatever, first piece of I-beam.
You
Yeah,
bet.
I think about I am not a professional athlete. I never have been, but I know some people who were, and I was lucky enough to swim with some Olympic athletes. And structure is absolutely the word, I would say, because I mean, the other word might be routine, but I think structure is a smarter word because routine feels negative to some people. Structure just feels like it's predictable, it's logical, it's repeatable, and it's something that you begin to love because you can see how it's building. You can see the results of that it's getting. And actually, what you hear a lot of times from people who retire from a sport, and maybe you went through this yourself, they miss it. When it goes away, they don't know what to do. And I actually wonder, you can answer that question and whether or not that happened to you, but I'm also curious about how do you continue when structure changes or even when structure might go away for any particular reason?
Well, I went into hell. I mean, I
Did you?
literally went into hell. I went back to substance abuse, which I had
Mm,
gone through when I was younger, and back in the days of the 70s, with the rock bands and
yeah.
all the weed and all that stuff. I went back to that because I had no more structure.
Hmm.
And a lot of Olympic athletes go through that,
Yeah.
actually. When they stop being within a structure, within an organizational flow, airline tickets are booked for you. You're going to Argentina for the Pan Am Championships, and then your calendar for the year, you're going to that competition, and your job is just to go to the gym, do your weights, go to the track, ride your bike if that's what you're doing, or swim. And you have to eat certain way, and you have to follow a certain protocol, and you know, when you lose all that, you're not taken care of anymore. You're on your own.
Hmm.
A lot of athletes suffer because of it. So, yeah,
Hmm.
you have to kind of, I guess, mourn that part of your life. There's a certain part of mourning, and
Hmm.
then you have to kind of maybe seek help to kind of find yourself. What are your value? What's important to you now?
Hmm.
I went through that, and I went
Hmm.
through other things, not so healthy, to come back to it. And it's when I hit the wall, when my mother passed away, when my
Hmm.
partners kicked me out, and they should have because I did something I should not have done. I messed up royally. I went into a relationship which I should not have done, and it created a lot of violence in many ways.
Hmm.
I was a sad, mad person.
Hmm.
And then, Buddhism came along as a friend. Someone introduced me to it while we were playing tennis, and I had kind of talked about that. So my Buddhist practice got me right back onto progressively learning to honor my own life.
Hmm.
And when you lose someone, there's a concept in Buddhism called expedient means in the Lotus Sutra. The most expedient of all those means to wake up is death.
Hmm.
When you lose someone, you wake up.
Yeah.
So that was the starting point for me to honor my life and the life of my mother and everything that she had provided for me. And I said, okay, I got to turn it around. And I started turning it around. And I took care of my father for 14 years until he passed away. And I became, a good friend to my dad. I actually, the expediency transformed my relationship with my dad. I took up cycling. And one thing led to another, and then next you know, I'm at the World Championships competing.
Amazing. It's you replaced one structure with another. And I mean, that's you use another word in in what I've read about you and in the conversations we've had, and that word is alignment. And you talk about alignment between the body, the mind, the business, going back to business performance. And in today's environment where everybody feels overloaded, they feel fragmented, pulled in a bunch of different directions, how can people and leaders begin to rebuild that alignment, which is a kind of structure, I imagine? How can they do that in practical ways?
Well, what did I say at the beginning? Make a decision.
Yeah. That's where it starts.
It starts there. Like you make a decision. You may not know where to go, what to do, but you made a decision that I'm not going to continue along the path I'm doing. So I have to make a decision. And sometimes, as we know, I always say to people, you're walking in the woods, you end up lost. You were lost for a while there. You didn't know you were lost.
Hmm.
And then you stop. You wait a minute. I don't know where I am. Well, at which point did you get lost?
Right.
There's a point. That's
Hmm.
not important. It's important is that you realize, okay, I don't have the same bearings. What do I do? I need to do something different. And that becomes your journey of your quest, your searching. I thought with the what I've gone through that my WellSpan program could be one of those kinds of, I guess, compasses in your life, a
Hmm.
place that you'll have someone who cares for your happiness. Because I'm not into this just for doing business. It's really a personal mission of mine because it made all the difference for my life. And
Hmm.
I've been able to do things that a lot of people can't do because they restricted themselves. They shortchanged their own perception. I said no to that. I said, I will do with much my heart. And I'm helping others do that. So, for all kinds of other reasons. I have a friend, a client, 76 years old. He's
Wow.
lifting weights, he was squatting for a while, and he stopped for a bit, and then he was walking down the street in where he lives in Toronto, and he fell. He fell hard on the cement.
Mm.
The first thing he said, I thought of you, Denis, that you had helped me to become strong. He got up and he was able to just to remove the dust and no broken bones. When you hit a certain age, breaking a bone can become a traumatic downward spiral
Yes.
toward incapacity to handle the drugs for the pain,
Hmm.
which actually kills you
Yeah.
just because of a broken set of bones.
Hmm.
And bone density and muscle strength are intimately related, and your metabolic capabilities also. And if your metabolic capabilities also, see the linking now that
Hmm.
your behavior has a biochemical foundation. So if you're okay, if you're good, physically, gut wise, metabolically wise, it's going to affect the brain, the mind, the thinking. You'll be able to sustain, to develop capacity to continue. And the key is to continue, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm hearing physical, mental, spiritual alignment really leads to clarity. You can even make those decisions faster and keep and hold them longer. I'm hearing that it creates a sense of or durability, to use one word, or endurance to use another. And I mean, those are qualities of good leadership, but they're just not just resident in the brain. They're resident in the body. They're resident in the spirit. They're resident all all within. But very few people are maybe tapping into all of that in a coordinated way.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you start where it's easy for you.
Yeah.
There's 3 points of entry. Start the one. I have found that with my clients, the people I work with, starting with the physical foundation affects the biochemical structure of your own body. And more muscle means more endocrine value, more motor capabilities. And we just found this out now, like in the last 5 or 10 years, that more muscle means a better metabolic health.
Hmm.
Never thought of that before. When I was training, when I was younger, it was all about distance, aerobic capacity, cardiovascular benefits, running, marathon, triathlon, swimming, jogging, cross-country skiing. No one talked about strength as a function. Now do you have Olympic athletes are integrating in their own training, strength training, powers training with weights and heavy
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, they're realizing And we have a friend, she's in her mid-60s, about to retire, a bit of a looser kind of looking lady. And she fell, she cracked three parts of her bones on her tibia and her ankle.
Oh,
It should not have happened, but because her bone density is so rare, so weak, the density of her bones, the bone density is so osteoporosis, she succumbed to those
yeah,
kind of things. That should not happen if you're strong and
yeah,
you're capable.
yeah,
So that's just look at what the spiraling effects it has on your life.
right.
You can't go back to the typical pre-fall conditions for quite a while.
Hmm.
And if you hit 65, 70, and that happens to you, I'm sorry, but this are facts. There's a 30% chance of passing away in the first year
Yeah.
with a bone, a hip. So,
So back to the basics. It starts with strength.
yes,
And it doesn't mean everybody has to be powerlifting on day one. They maybe just go to the
exactly.
gym and turn right around, but it starts somewhere.
It
We're
starts
just have
somewhere.
just a couple minutes left, Denis. I'm sorry for the speed of which this goes by, but you've given us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate that. I'm wondering what the open water community can do for you.
Well, they can think about their own lives, look at themselves.
Hmm.
Like it's a call, it's a clarion call to them for their own lives. And if they want to have a conversation, we can have a conversation. They may not be ready for this, but I'm happy to share with them some of the learnings of my teachings in Buddhism and my training as an athlete and as a coach and as a business performer, because I coach salespeople, I coach business owners to develop better go-to-market capabilities. Combination thereof, let's start wherever you want.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, if I can help one person today change their lives because of this decision they make, D, capital D, I feel blessed and I thank you for that.
Well, I thank you, Denis. This has been wonderful, a great interview. I wish you a great, for us, it's a holiday weekend, maybe not for you in Canada, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope that we'll return to something like that again.
So do I. So do I. Thank you, Denis.
Thank you so much.